Welcome to another episode. Of Break the Cycle with me, your host, Joshua Smith. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. Thank you guys for coming back time and time again. We got an absolutely based show tonight. I'm very excited. But of course, we're going to start off with some sponsors. Let me get it going here. Let me see what's going on. Sorry, I'm having some video issues here. Of course, we have Lorenzotti.coffee for all your delicious Italian coffee needs delivered directly to your door. Bring the taste of Italy home. Use BTC at checkout for a 10% discount. And TopLobster.com, the man, the myth, the legend, my good friend, where you can get this awesome. Here, let me move the mic. You can get this awesome dark camo custom Break the Cycle sunset hoodie with the awesome synthwave logo design, and you can use BTC at checkout for a 10% discount. Of course, you can also join the Patreon or the Discord or the join under the video here to become a member of the Google, and you can get into a Discord chat where Top Lobster drops awesome designs 2 weeks before they go to general population at a deep 30% discount. He just dropped a really great free Ross shirt that I have to get soon. So hopefully you guys will go check that out. And executive producer of the show, anthemplanning.com, for all your emergency and crisis planning needs. Check them out. See what they can do today for your business, your home, or your personal life. I am having problems, Ryan, for some reason with your screen. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, but well, it's showing my screen instead of your video, and I'm not sure why. Sorry, guys, having some audio or some video issues here. But anyways, our guest tonight is ultra based, banned from every. There you go. Say Ron Paul 3 times. We'll fix any video issue. But he is one of the most based people to not be on any social media because he continues to get banned for saying the truth. He is the host of the ANC Report. He is Mr. Ryan Dawson. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, and I hope you're having a good Wednesday afternoon, but it's Thursday here.
Oh, yeah. You are somewhere completely different.
It's Thursday for the majority of people in the world.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
That international dateline, right?
Yeah, I mean, Asia's got the most people, right? So
it's true. I live in Iowa. Very few Asians here.
Part of the diagonal line.
yeah, just barely, right? Just barely cuts it off there.
Just barely. I don't know. We bring them in. You're kind of like a border state.
We love corn and ranch dressing, man. We're good to go, you know.
Yeah, culturally you're there. There you go.
So, man, we talked a little bit about this prior to the to us starting the stream, but I've never really heard your story about. I mean, your journey to where you are today. You know, you're definitely a radical. You definitely say things that people love to twist up and change. But how did you get to the Ryan Dawson we know today?
It's been a long game of whack-a-mole. I mean, I know in the last few years, lots of people have been getting censored on social media, but the internet didn't even start with social media. You know, we had America Online and things like that. And I got banned on those too. I got kicked off AOL Hometown. And the way they did it is some guy made a screen name that was like one number different from mine. Like I think mine was something something and it ended in 7, so he made something something 8, something something 6, something something 9, like that. He just kept making new names and spurging out on people and getting banned. And so my name got caught up with that, like, oh, he must have made this too. And they erased my AOL account, which erased my AOL web pages. And I had a huge anti-war website, and had a lot of Native American issues on there. I explained like each grievance with the BIA and stuff for everybody, and all that got erased. And then, eventually I moved over to MySpace. I got banned off of MySpace in 2005. And we actually started the group 9/11 Truth. And we only had like 700 members when I got banned. And then this other guy took over called Tyler Vincent, and they ran with it. But because I wasn't allowed on, it got kookified. And then Alex Jones started saying it, and We Are Change or something. They just took it over and, turned it into
what it is
nonsense. Yeah, what it is today. Just yelling about Building 7 or whatever. Yeah. And so I got kicked off that. But there was a guy named Robert Larson. He worked for KUCI in Irvington, California at a radio show. And he had noticed me on MySpace and in that group saying things about September 11th that nobody was saying. Not just, we're filling its own footprint, no building filled from fire, all the Jonestown stuff. I was getting deep into how the hijackers are financed and the Israeli celebrations and all that stuff. And so that was my first radio show. And it was very exciting. It's like, I was just posting stuff on the internet. Now I'm on a radio show. And radio was a bigger deal then than it is now, because there were no podcasts or none of that. There was no YouTube. There was not. So being on the radio was a big deal. And I remember doing a show. We talked about anthrax, just the anthrax part of 9/11 for a while. And then I was on that show again about the erroneous weapons of mass destruction about Iraq and things, and which I had done that, and as a college student, I was in college during 2003, and so in the run up to the war in Iraq, I was just losing my shit, saying they're lying. If they had any evidence of WMDs, they'd show us, but there isn't any. It's all accusations, and Iraq's being put in a position of proven negative. And I had already seen the Israelis pushing for war in Iraq since the 90s. With the clean break papers, and I was well aware of PNAC back then, and I knew a lot of the neocons back then, and I knew about the Office of Special Plans even, thanks to guys like Justin Raimondo were writing about it, and Mike Rivero was another OG guy. Then, and that's the guy, Mike Rivero, who really elevated my status, because when I made a September 11th film called War by Deception, he put it on his website. And then I started doing radio interviews with Mike Rivero, and he was huge in the early 2000s. He was like, after Jones, it was Mike Rivero, baby. Or it was like Rentz and Rivero and Jones. Jones ended up kicking Mike off his show and getting him removed from GCN because Mike Rivero would talk about the Israelis. Right. And Alex, as compromised as he is, just won't go there.
Sure.
He did every... He's not just afraid. He just, I think he's compromised. I mean, he's ended up marrying his masseuse, and he's looking at T-girl porn online. Like, that guy's got no impulse control, and they honey trapped him. That's my opinion. But I mean, for whatever it is, he's either a coward or he's blackmailed, or both, because he knows better. Like, he had Donald Trump on his show talking about the dancing is Arabs, but they're really dancing Israelis. And we all know that Jones knows that. And not only did he not correct him on that, he went along with the dancing Arabs crap. So I was like, okay, Alex, why don't you just scream I've been compromised or whatever. But
well, and he's on banned.video now, so he can basically say whatever he wants too, right?
He's still not going to do it. Yeah. I mean, he can say, it's for the money or what. I don't care why. The result's the same, right? And it's like, well, you could let Mike do it or someone else on your show do it, but he had them all removed too. True. And that was just low. And so I'm friends with Mike Rivero, or what? Like, I've met him in person, and I met him in Hawaii one time, but I met his wife too. She's awesome. Claire's awesome. She knows all this stuff too. And Mike would periodically link to my forum. I had a forum from about 2005. This is like after I got kicked off AOL and everything. From about 2005 to 2015, that's where it was at. And that got destroyed by like bots. All the PPHP stuff got destroyed. And I swear to God, I think Facebook went around and did it. Because the old blogosphere was these forums.
Sure.
Everybody's writing on forums and stuff. And then they slowly started migrating over to MySpace and Facebook. But during the MySpace era, you had both. You'd have a MySpace page, and it kind of was like Instagram. It got took over by the attention whores and look at me stuff, and then it was like music and whatever. And so people went back on the forums. Then these bots went around and destroyed the forums. So people went to Facebook. And early Facebook did not ban everybody.
Right.
But I swear, and the reason that Facebook defeated MySpace was video games. They had Mafia Wars and Farmville.
Yep.
And like if you were someone's friend on Facebook, you could like tinker around with their farm or whatever. And like it was like, well, this is the war. They had these little niche video games, and they get the gamers over and stuff. And like they were like boomer games too.
Oh, big time. And they posted on your profile all the time. And, Oh yeah.
And Facebook became the thing and whatever, and was like, oh, this is younger, because they went after colleges and something. But it was a weird thing, because you saw MySpace was like the fourth. It was like Google, Yahoo, something, MySpace. They were the biggest thing on the internet, and it went from the top to practically nothing,
right? Just
like that. And the same thing's going to happen to Facebook. Like Facebook's got billion users or something, but the way MySpace also engaged in censorship, right? Facebook, who the hell has not had a 30-day ban on Facebook? Right?
You probably aren't saying anything of value if you haven't.
Right. It's like anybody that does politics that's not a radical leftist, which is basically everybody in real life, has been banned for a week to 30 days on Facebook.
True.
And I was getting cyclical bans because when the ADL and stuff took over, they start banning you for retroactively. So I was like, well, all those posts going back 12, 15 years, whatever, they're just this one. So I couldn't even erase my page because I couldn't even log in. It's like, you're banned. Now I'm perma-banned. But that place was just useless. And I think VK is what's going to replace it. They have 500 million users already.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like some rich Russian guy basically made another Facebook. It's like, yeah, I just use this and we're not going to censor.
Sure.
Right. So, and then around 2006 is when YouTube came out. But at the time, they could only do 10-minute videos, and there weren't a lot of people on YouTube. Google Video was more popular, and you could also post short videos like on MySpace and stuff and just host it on FTP or whatever. But I did start using it, and that YouTube channel grew really popular, and I got kicked off YouTube December 2008. And all my videos and stuff were erased, and I had another channel. I had created 2 YouTube channels in the beginning. I was like, oh, I don't like this name, but I didn't know how to delete it, so I just started a new one. So they're like, you can't create new channels. I'm like, luckily, I already have one I made the same day I made the first one. So I just started using that one. And then that one got banned and then returned and then banned and then returned and then banned for good. And they erased like 900 videos. Like in 2019, they made a rule of like, you can't offend anybody for any reason. They just went and started, they wouldn't erase your channel, but they just erased all the videos that were offensive, which is like all my videos.
Sure. Yeah.
Because all I did is politics.
Right.
Like I didn't have any videos on anything else. So they just anything to do with the Middle East, they erased. Anything anti-war, anything like that. So kicked off that. Was kicked off PayPal in 2014. Kicked off PayPal again in 2018 or 19. It was like November of 2018. Kicked my wife's PayPal off. Got kicked off Stream Elements, Streamlabs, Gumroad, Vimeo. I had 6 years worth of videos on Vimeo, and I had a very successful month in September, October, because I made September 11th films.
Sure.
And they just took all my money. They took like $6,000, and they prevented my ability to sell films. And we were doing Syria updates and Palestine updates, and I had employees, so they lost their money too. And people who had already bought films couldn't watch them because Vimeo just erased the whole channel out of the blue. So some activist was like, this is anti-Semitic. I'm like, right. It doesn't even mention that ethnic group or word the whole time.
Right.
I'm mentioning neocons and never pointed out that 90-something% of them are Jewish or whatever. So I didn't think it mattered. I was like, yeah, sure, 90% of that's like saying, yeah, well, like 90% of rapists are male, but 99.99999% of males are not rapists.
Right.
You know, it's you can't if you don't understand like the subset of a category and how that's not reversible, you're just dumb. You know, like that's the way leftists tend to view things in categories like biological teleology and stuff. They're just like the alt-right. I mean, they think they give prescriptions to, you know, how you're supposed to what acting black is like and what acting white is like and what acting like you have a role to play. A woman is like this and a man's like this. And so if I feel like a woman's supposed to be, then I'm supposed to be a girl. It's like, no, you're just a effeminate guy.
Sure.
And that's okay. Like, no, you're supposed to be a woman. I'm like, do you not understand how prejudiced you're being? You're saying men are supposed to act like this, women are supposed to act like this.
I like to call it what is it? Admission through projection.
Right. Yeah. It's like so. Let's say a black person doesn't speak Ebonics. This is their stereotype, not mine. They're very articulate and basically like, you know, acting quote unquote white. You know, they transracial.
Carlton.
You know what I mean? But this is the kind of crap they say. Like, if you don't vote for me, you're not black.
Right.
That was Joe Biden.
He literally said that.
What the hell? What's the black way of thinking? What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah,
Anybody can
they're
think
the
however
racist.
they want.
They're the racist.
Yeah,
I've said that repeatedly over and over.
I know they're prejudiced for sure.
Yeah.
Like they're racist. They are. I mean,
but it's always some like upper middle class to upper class, like well off, well to do, rich liberal or whatever. That's like you're
because that's the only kind of person that could possibly be that isolated, and that's the only way to be that dumb.
Right.
Is to be that isolated. Right.
Yeah, they're the same people that are pushing for gun control when they've never had to live in a rough neighborhood. You know what I mean?
They have like a gated community with guards and guns. I mean, the people pushing for gun control built a wall around the Capitol with armed guards and barbed wire and the rest of it, you know? Like,
absolutely.
They want walls and guns because they know it works. I mean, obviously the better thing to do is to fix the conditions that lead to that, so you don't have to get to the point of walling yourself up or whatever. But yeah, whatever.
That would take. That would take learning a lesson, though.
Well, yeah, that would take. The left is in love with what sounds good rather than what works.
Right.
You know, and they realize the right does this too. I mean, they realize they can essentially buy votes. I mean, once the public realized it could vote itself money, that was the end of democracy. And they pandered to different demographic groups, promising wealth transfers. And so whole blocks of people all vote for a certain party. Like, there's no way 95% or 90% of blacks vote Democrat because they all agree with liberal principles, whatever. It's like, no, they're promising me free stuff.
Right.
And that happened to Latinos used to vote Republican because they're more religious and Catholic and conservative, and that's what they believe. But the moment they're like, we'll give you freebies, and then, and at least in California stuff, they flip to the other team. It's like, you can't just buy groups, but they do.
Sure.
That's not the government is not supposed to be in the business of redistributing wealth. That's socialism. Right. But it does.
Well, the thing is I was talking about this. I was on a show earlier with Chase Geiser, who's really great. And we were talking about how, you know, the Democrats especially, they run on all these issues, defunding the police, sometimes anti-war stuff, but they never govern that way. It's not even close, right? And
not even anti-war. They're like, we voted against the war in Iraq because we thought it should have been multilateral instead of unilateral.
Right.
You know, that was John Kerry's position and Sanders and stuff. But Sanders supported the Iraq war under Clinton when he bombed radar and stuff and wanted and authorized the 98 War Act against Iraq, although Clinton actually is the one that said no. And he supported all Obama's wars in Libya and Syria. And so they're not anti-war. There's a few individuals like Dennis Kucinich and Tulsi Gabbard and like 4 other people that are actually anti-war on the left, and the same with the right. There's like Thomas Massey, and there used to be Walter Jones and a few guys that were actually anti-war. Everyone else is sold on the MIC.
Right.
all of them.
Especially the Democrats. I mean, the Democrats the MIC's like
Well,
in their pocket.
especially they started World War One, World War Two, the Korean War, Vietnam, like all the major theaters of war for Democrats.
Right. But
and they did Libya and Syria, and
the Libya thing is so I'm not as versed on the Libya thing as others. I mean, was there truth to the fact that they were like told Muammar Gaddafi like you're going to join the central banking or we're going to take it over? I mean, do you know?
No, that's bullshit.
That's bullshit.
That whole thread about the gold dinar and Libya didn't have a central bank fits with the trope of like I'm against central banks and fractional reserve banking, and I was an OG anti-Fed person way before Ron Paul and Bill Still and what. People that became like an internet fad, like, oh, did you know Rothschilds? And, oh, we're only invading countries that don't have central banks. Like, they have a central bank, and all these places do actually. It went out. It was like meme culture. Like, look, Iran and Syria and all these don't have a central bank. Like, yeah, they do. What are you talking about?
Sure.
The gold dinar is crap. Well, the reason they went into Libya is because Egypt had a revolution, reopened the Suez Canal, which allowed Libya to trade oil directly to China without going through the Israeli middleman.
Sure. And
all prior to that, you can look at the Ashlat pipeline that, ironically, Iran and Israel built together prior to '79. When from Operation Ajax until the revolution of '79, Iran was a client state of the United States. And so during that time, they built a pipeline with Israel so that you could bring oil down from the pipelines that go from Azerbaijan to Turkey. They go on a boat, they go to Israel, they slide through Israel rather than Egypt, and they go to the Red Sea. And once you're in the Red Sea, you're in the Maritime Silk Road, and you can deliver that to India, China, Japan, Korea, whatever. So it's very key who controls that pass, and there's only two options, Israel or Egypt. And so politically, they'd paid off Mubarak, and they would not allow Iranian ships to go up, and they wouldn't allow Libyan ships to go down. And there were no pipelines going across Africa. And you can notice all the countries, like there's all these little breakaway countries hugging the Red Sea,
sure.
Eritrea, Djibouti, and stuff. And the same thing with the Strait of Hormuz. You got Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and a little bit of Saudi Arabia. All these little fiefdoms pop up just because of that Maritime Silk Road trade. But there ended up being another revolution in Egypt, like 3 in a row, right, where they finally went and reclosed it. But there was a window, and Gaddafi made these like $22 billion worth of oil contracts with the Chinese. And it's not so much who he's selling it to, it's who he's not selling it to. Because he told the Europeans to blow his ass. And France and Italy, and they were like, oh, yeah, nah. So they just went and replaced them and handed the country over to Al-Qaeda. And it's like knowing all that's complicated, and you have to know about history and economics. But trying to explain all that to the people who are going, nah, it's the gold dinar.
Right.
They've been talking about that for 40 years. I mean, they said the same thing about Iraq. They're like, oh, Saddam Hussein was going to leave the petrodollar and start basing oil on euros. I'm like, cool story, bro. We invaded Iraq before the euro existed. Before the European Union existed. And there was no euro. And we had Gulf War I, and Saddam we already had the oil. It's called the Oil for Food Program. And you know how much oil Iraq sold to China before 2003? None. Do you know what happened after the war? They became their largest importer. Is that good for the United States?
No.
Fuck no. Does it matter what it's based in? And the petrodollar's crap too. Like, we're always begging the Chinese to stop buying reserves, right? Because that whole thing, they're like, have you read Economic Hitman from John Perkins? I'm like, yes. It's a thing, and it's like these popular radio hosts can say petrodollar, gold dinar, or whatever. And unfortunately, Rivera was on that train. And that's just it. Because they're like, oh, yeah, I hate central banks. That fits my worldview. And the facts and reality don't matter. It just sounds good. It's like, oh, yeah, central banks are bad. I bet he was going against those. That's why they got Gaddafi. Sure. It's like, no, it's not. There's very specific. Well, like, why not get him 40 years ago or whatever? I mean, why is it right after the Egyptian Revolution when he's got direct oil routes that circumvent the Israelis? right? Everything we do in the Middle East is because of the Israelis.
Of
The
course.
reason we went to war in Iraq clearly was based on weapons of mass destruction, was the myth, but the reason was for Israeli interests, and the people who lied about Iraq were all Zionist neocons.
Right.
It wasn't Exxon or BP or whatever doing that. And BP's not American. They're not gonna want America taking over Iraq when they get pushed out. The oil companies actually opposed the war in Iraq. They're like, we got a good thing going here, oil for food program. What the hell? No, they went into Iraq because he was supporting Palestinians.
Sure.
And they said, we got to get rid of Saddam Hussein. The Scud missiles can reach Israel. Like, we're being threatened here. So remember, we had the Patriot missile system out there.
Right.
The whole first Gulf War, they're saying, oh, we're going in because they're attacking Kuwait or whatever. And I remember I'm in like 4th or 5th grade thinking, why are they firing missiles at Israel? Like, why? Israel's not doing any of this. Why are they shooting at them? There's something going on we're not being told.
Right.
And you can read their own policy papers from Oded Yanan, Richard Pearl, and Wormser's clean break strategy. I like is get rid of Saddam and then go into Syria. Get rid of Saddam and then we can go into Syria. And that's exactly what they did. And now they're in Syria. Right. It's not because Assad gassed his own people.
No,
like that's in the middle of the war anyway, and he didn't do it.
Right.
They're like, and it's not because he jailed people doing graffiti or something. It's saying that was part of the script the whole time, because that's what's in Israel's interest. It's not oil. It's not the petrodollar. It's not the Illuminati. It's not the globalists or the Chi-Coms or the elite or the deep state or any of these euphemisms. It's Zionist. Sure. And they have names. And they wrote the papers for it. And they're constantly lying. I mean, Israel's been attacking Syria all summer long with airstrikes and things. That's an act of war. The fact that that's not on TV is all you need to know. Like if any other country took F-15s and went out and started shooting missiles into another country, that would be considered an act of war and on television. But Israel does it all the time, and not a single network or newspaper even says it.
Right.
Inside the United States. It's reported outside, and it's reported online. When they bomb Latakia. And then if there's a reaction, that's in the news. Right?
Always,
as soon as Hamas fires rockets from Gaza, that's all over the news. But all the brutality and children killing and house demolishing and all that's not in the news.
Sure.
So you got to see, like, our media is totally bought and paid for there, and on the side of the Israelis.
Well, and
that's why they knew.
People hear that if you speak up like you are now, if you don't get censored, they'll label you alt-right, white nationalists, anti-Semitic, right. All that great stuff.
Is so dumb. And if you oppose Israel, you're anti-Semitic. Like, Israel's not the Jews.
It's a state.
Israel's a country. I mean, that's like, oh yeah, you hate Asians because you don't like communism in North Korea. Because North Korea is 100% Korean.
Sure.
And I'm like, I don't think it has anything to do with their ethnic group. I think it has to do with their policies. And Jewish supremacists, which is what Zionism is, I mean, they're ethnically cleansing Palestinians. If the Palestinians were ethnically cleansing Jews, I'd be on the other team. It's not. Oh gosh, that's so dumb. But a collectivist always thinks like that. Like, oh, you don't like Israel? Why? You hate Judaism? Like, no, I hate shooting kids in the balls and demolishing houses and ethnic cleansing. Sure. I mean, that's like saying the colonization of American Indians. Like, if you oppose it, it's because you hate white people. It's like, this isn't, first of all, it ain't the whites doing it. It's the state doing it.
Right.
Right. Lots of whites were not doing it and didn't want to do it. Tried, even heads of state wanted assimilation with that back then and stuff, including Ben Franklin. He didn't like the Delaware Indians specifically, but he had his allies. We had the French and Indian War with American Indians fought in every single American war. They're the only other ethnic group other than Europeans to be in all the conflicts.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
They wouldn't allow black troops in the world wars and stuff, but they used Native Americans because they'd been using Native Americans in American wars from day one, from the Tuscarora wars and things they had. So anyway, but side thing, but yeah, that's the alt-right crap. I see them as almost the same as the left. They're really horseshoes. And they're really, a lot of these like white separatists and stuff are just like Zionists, except the white ethno state instead of the Jewish ethno state.
Sure.
I mean, what is the difference ideologically other than the brand?
And there's a religion involved in one, and if you say something bad about it, you're going to be in trouble, buddy.
Okay, sure. Judaism has the extra issue of religious bigotry on top of the racism. Sure.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Like,
there you go. That makes it a little bit worse.
And these same people that will call you white nationalists or whatever for saying these things will go around talking shit about all the other religions.
I mean, if I was a white nationalist, why would I live in a country that doesn't have any white people?
Yeah. Yeah, they're like Japan. Japan is pretty separatist, man.
It's 99.98% Japanese, and then the other minorities are Korean or Chinese. They're not European,
right?
And I'm already racial mutt, and I have biracial kids, but I'm white nationalist. That's so dumb. I was like, I mean, I hate all this anti-white crap that I see too. Sure. Like, I see the only institutional systemic racism I see is towards whites. Like, they're being dumped on. Critical race theory is racist. And it's getting, and I think that's a problem. Like, you can't criticize the racism toward whites without being accused of being a white racist, True. Which is ridiculous. I mean, I criticize feminists too, because I just see that as man-hating bullshit. And they say, what do you not like women? I'm like, no, I'm all for equal rights and all that. But that, you know goddamn well that's not what that is.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, it's gone beyond the equal rights thing for sure over the last
decade. Yeah. It does. And you know, it's weird because it's coming back to bite them in the butt, letting transgenders athletes in women's sports and things. And it's like, well, you're denying biological differences, and there are biological differences, and now you've got men competing with women. And it's not the athletes. All the athletes are like, fuck this. This is not unfair. Like, they had no delusions about, oh, I'm going to wrestle a man or whatever. They knew. It's the people who are like, oh, no, there's no difference between men and women. It's just they've been held back or whatever. Segregation in sports makes sense.
Yeah, and it does. And it always has. I mean, it always has.
Yeah. It's okay. It's not superior, inferior. There's a difference there. There is. You know?
Anybody who says different is not following the science, that's for sure.
I mean, I can think of maybe there's got to be some sport where the gap is less wide, but I think it's anything. It doesn't matter. Like, men have it's not just like, you can't just correct it with hormone therapy. It's not just testosterone. I mean, they're taller, bigger bones, faster reaction time. Like, their brain works faster. So even ping pong and stuff has to be segregated. Like, it doesn't. They have natural biological advantages on the elite level. So, like, when you get to the very peak, you know, it matters. And even like, look at like running and stuff. You're talking about the smallest difference is a huge difference, because these races among professionals are being determined by tenths of a second or less. And so, I mean, the shoes could make a difference, you know. And you're going to let a man run with women. It's ridiculous. I'm waiting for some 7-foot guy to just go in the WNBA and just dunk on him every play. Alley-oop. Oh, you can't jump that high, and I can. Honk, gong. And he could just make 400 points a game, you know, because nobody – it's so stupid. And recently in California, they had a guy, like, with a penis going in the women's locker room, taking his clothes off in front of children and stuff. And the women complained, like, this is a man – there's cack and balls right there, and he's showing it to my daughter and these children, and I don't want to see it either. And the people there were like, we can't discriminate against transgender. Like, you are enabling the mentally ill. There is no such thing as transgender. It's people playing pretend. You know, you're not a woman just because you want to be. That's not. I mean, it's like you can't change your age. You are however old you are. That's it. I mean, the only argument there I could think of is if you were in a coma for some number of years and that part of your life was missing, and you weren't. Not even then, your body's still going to grow and stuff. You can't lie about stuff like that. And they feel like, no, if I feel like a woman or a man, I'm like, no, you're just a dude that got plastic surgery and took some hormones. Well, even if you chop your junk off, then you're a guy that chopped his junk off. You'll never be a woman.
So do you agree that like transmorphia is a legit thing though?
it's a legit mental disorder.
Sure.
You know, I mean, it's like I understand that the people probably actually are suffering, like because they have this attitude of, oh, I was supposed to be X. But the way to fix that is just to fix your attitude. Like if there's different reasons. Like, oh, I've always felt like a woman. I'm like, well, what's a woman feel like? How do you know? Like what you're assuming they're supposed to be this certain way. Like all male and female is penis and vagina. You can be however you want to be. You know, you can be as gay or effeminate or whatever. It doesn't matter. All of that's male.
Sure.
And they feel like, nah, I'm supposed to be a girl. Like you can wear makeup and dresses and all that too, but you're still gonna have a penis and you're still gonna be a man. And it's okay to wear dresses and stuff.
Yeah, Kurt Cobain did it all the time, man.
We decided that makeup and what, like that's all social stuff.
Sure.
And so you can do what you want to do with that. What you can't do is pretend to be a woman and then invade in female spaces, athletics, even prisons. They're putting men in women's
dangerous.
Prisons, and then the guys are raping women with their penis.
Right. And that's legit. That really
gotta blame. I don't blame the mentally ill person. I blame everyone else that's enabling it. Why the fuck would you put a man in a woman's prison?
Right.
Like the whole, and these liberals are like so scared of the accusation of prejudice that they end up supporting things that are 100 times more ridiculous.
Sure. Absolutely. We got some super chat.
I can't believe this shit. Like I can't believe this has to be explained.
Right.
You know?
Well, it's become so like I don't really have problems with transgender people. Like I'm from California, man. I know a lot of them. You know what I mean? And like
I don't care if someone wants to play pretend,
right.
But you got to draw the line on invading female spaces.
The prison thing is ridiculous. The athletic thing
prisons
is ridiculous.
And athletics and all that's all. Like if you want to change your name and get called her and whatever, dude, great, you know. But you're not a girl.
Yeah. we got some super chats, Ryan. Let's see. Elijah Marquez, thanks a lot. He said Top Lobster killed it with Ryan's portrait. The Naturalist Capitalist Reed Coverdale said, we are Ryan Dawson. Thanks for risking your channel to have Ryan on, Josh. Top Lobster says we miss Ryan in the Twitter group chat. Thank you, Jackman. Thank you, Jackman Radio, bro. I appreciate you. He said props for having Ryan on. Long live the Four Horsemen. Reed says next Four Horsemen's on Sunday with Clint from Liberty Lockdown. Bagoo 82, thank you. And then we got some questions too.
The chair I'm on, it was Clint gave me this chair. That was a donation from Liberty Lockdown.
Oh, that's pretty cool, man. Is it the same?
Yeah,
kind
it's a dragon chair. It's like one of those things you kneel on. You're not sitting on it.
Oh, nice. Hell yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, because I had this stupid chair. I looked like I was sitting on the floor. And this is better for your back and all that. Like if you're have a job like I do where you're sitting a lot, you know, I used to walk and talk, but I can't be on YouTube or anything anymore, so right. I have to sit here and use other things.
This couch, you think having a couch would be the shit, you know what I mean? But man, my back is fucked.
It's better than a chair, but yeah, dude. What happens when you sit for a long time is it affects your hamstrings tighten up, and then that messes up your lower back.
Yeah,
and people stretch their back. I'm like, that's not going to matter. You need to stretch your hamstrings, but you could just avoid the whole thing by changing chairs.
Yeah, I love the couch. It's nice, but yeah, man, I noticed I started setting back further because I used to sit right up on the edge, and then my shoulders and everything were starting to hurt from like slumping down on the laptop. So now I'm trying to set back further, but it's still kind of rough.
You either need to have a table that's higher off the ground that brings your laptop up,
or higher.
And I don't benefit from this at all, but get a dragon chair with two ends. It's like, I'll pick it up and show you if you want. Like, it's really good. I've been using this and I don't have any issues. It's like you're kind of sitting on a diagonal chair and then your knees are on another thing.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And
I might get one for work. Maybe for work that'd be good.
You should. You know. I'm like any blogger or whatever. Like I'm like evangelist for these chairs, right? I should find a way to sell them on my site.
No shit. This is the whole ergonomics conversation, man. Magoo82, thanks a lot for the super chat. Jake Riley said, "Yo Ryan, what's the best food out there in Japan, and what food do you miss from the U.S. that you can't get there?"
I miss the two foods: They don't have turkey. Isn't that weird? You thought that was just everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, there's no turkeys in Japan. And it's extremely hard to get bacon.
Oof.
They have, which is weird because you can get like, you could eat the stomach of a pig and every other part, the heart, the liver, whatever, and you can get ham, and you get, they call it bacon, but it's just ham cut into rectangles. Right? You get different parts of the pig taste differently. You can't get proper bacon. That pisses me off like every day.
Yeah, that's rough.
Like you think you'd get used to it, you don't. I'm like, where's the goddamn? When I go to the U.S., like 50% of my motivation is work. The other 50% is, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a big fucking Reuben or club sandwich with something with bacon. I'm like, oh yeah, I miss bacon so much. And I kind of miss turkey, like especially around Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff. But it's not like I can live without turkey. But damn, I wish I had
a lot
bacon.
of duck there, huh? They eat a lot of duck in Japan.
Duck is good. I mean, you can. That's sort of like. So the good things, because they asked about that, you can get duck in the U.S. too, but it is sort of like a secondary meat. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like you got to go to a big store or something. You can get duck and octopus here, no problem. And the shrimp here are huge, like the crawfish and stuff. Major ass jumbo shrimp and stuff, very good. And some of there's some fruits here that don't exist in the U.S. like yuzu.
I love yuzu.
I mean,
by the way,
I guess in the U.S. if you go to some weird Asian food store, right?
yeah, that's the only
find
place you can really find that kind of
But
stuff.
you have to be in a massive city. See, the cosmopolitan bias doesn't understand rural America doesn't have Asian food stores and Whole Foods and all that. Doesn't exist.
I know. It's funny because I make this Thai yellow curry stuff all the time. I'm from California, right outside of Oakland, big city stores. You can find Asian markets everywhere.
Sure.
And then I moved to Iowa and I wanted to make this curry. And there's like this very specific brand of like curry bouillon that I use, and I can't find it anywhere. I'm like, what the fuck?
Right. You have to get it on the internet or something.
Yeah. Drywall. Thanks for the $20 super chat, man. That's really cool.
We have horse meat. That's pretty good.
Is that a big thing there?
It's not a big thing. It's horse in Japan is like duck in the U.S.
It's like secondary.
It's available if you want it. Yeah.
I know there's some places like in some of the Nordic countries where it's like they eat it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I love moose and reindeer and all that too.
Sure.
Right? And you really can only get that in the Nordic countries or Canada, or like a super big store in California or whatever. We have like ostrich, wani, which is alligator, which you can get in the U.S. too if you're in like Louisiana or something, but it's not normal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're from the South,
so
right?
I enjoy those. I am. Well, I'm from an island, so it's kind of its own cultural zone. But yeah, it's part of North Carolina.
Okay, cool. Outlaw Barber, thanks for the super chat. He said, ask Ryan if he's ever read the book The Warburgs by Ron Chernow. Great book, changed my life. Keep up the great content. Cheers.
The Warburgs. Yeah, that's one of the families. It's like, why'd the Rothschilds get all the attention?
Right.
You know, how about the Warburgs and the Wilfs? And there's a bunch of the Shacklers, which are now getting attention. I guess the Sackler family. I always say Shackler for some reason. I don't know if I have. Let's see. I think I read an ebook version of that back in the day. There was one day where I just dove into that. I read like 4 Michael Piper books in a row. It was so good. When I got onto that guy and I got all his books, and I was like, all right, I'm digging it. I'm just gonna read this one, and I just went book to book to book. It was so good, and it's especially Final Judgment Edition 6. I was like, oh, I can't imagine all the time and effort. He did all this before the digital age, like in the paper age, digging up all these facts. This guy's a motherfucking beast. Yeah.
All right. Quest
I have a film on that does get into some of what these families were up to, called Trump's Zionist Ball and Chain.
What's it called?
It's called Trump's Zionist Ball and Chain.
Yeah.
It was originally called God's Not a Real Estate Agent because I was showing the corruption in New Jersey and New York, or the Port Authority, and how everybody's like vying for power to take it over because they issue out these giant real estate contracts. And then they pilfer part of that money, goes back to Israel, which goes back to bribing the Port Authority, which goes to getting contracts. So it goes in a circle, right?
Sure.
And part of what they did was buying up all this property across the Hudson River from the World Trade Centers prior to them being taken down. Anyway, yeah. And it's all these same families.
Wow.
I can't say, I don't want to get your channel banned, but they have a certain nickname for themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Quest Fanning said, but did Clinton give you a hot tub? Who did Clinton
No.
give a hot tub to? Is that a thing? Did that happen? Clint, where's my
Oh,
hot tub?
They donated a chair.
Yeah, nice.
I should just say, yeah, he gave me 2 hot tubs.
Yeah, I got 2 hot tubs. He sent me 2 hot tubs and a sandwich.
He's not going to send a hot tub to Japan.
God,
do you know what that would
imagine?
cost?
The freight on that is insane.
Clint's like rolling like some billionaire or something. No, I think I broke the bank on the chair. I didn't know he's really going to get a chair. I jokingly say I need a chair on every show. He actually did it.
That's pretty cool, man.
I use it every day. Yeah.
Clint's doing great, man. Me and Clint kind of came up at the same time here in this podcast game. It's been really fun watching him.
We had a great interview that touched on all the stuff you can't say. Like, let's see. Let me change the sentence. You ever been to Las Vegas? Talked about that thing. Talked about this part of 9/11 you're not allowed to talk about. Talked about the Corona beer.
Oh, sure, yeah. I talked about that. I've talked that a lot on my podcast, and I've been okay. They're all monetized too. It's pretty wild.
But what I have to say would push it over.
Sure.
And so we hit all those things, and we like at the end, like, yeah, it's not going on YouTube, but it went on his like audio podcast. Sure. It's a good one. It's a good interview.
Nice. I'll have to check it out. I didn't know that he did that. I'm sad that it wasn't on.
I think
YouTube.
you should make a video about the video. Say, hey, I did a video with Ryan Dawson that,
we can't put on YouTube.
You can't put on YouTube. It's too truthy. Yeah. So it's over here. Follow the link. Listen to it instead. Sure. And that would work. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So you're like pretty knowledgeable about 9/11 and all that stuff, man. I didn't even realize you had the documentary till recently. So.
Oh yeah. So I had 2. I have one that was like free. The focus is more on how they erroneously attached the 9/11 propaganda to Iraq.
Sure.
Because I felt like, one, that's the most important because we killed thousands of people in Iraq. And we lost thousands of soldiers, and we're losing veterans every day. And I felt like the public, it's an easier argument to make. Like, they lied. They said Saddam Hussein or Iraqi officials met in Prague and gave anthrax to Muhammad Atta. They did not. And they said there was mobile weapons labs making anthrax, and there were not. And so notes for anthrax said, death to America, death to Israel. And gee, I wonder who wrote them.
Right.
And James Woolsey and the Israeli security force lied about this meeting. They said they witnessed it. Well, you did not, because you can't witness a meeting that didn't take place between 2 parties that didn't have anthrax. Iraq didn't have anthrax to give. Al-Qaeda didn't have anthrax. And there was no meeting in Prague. But the Israelis said they witnessed this whole thing. James Woolsey, the former CIA director that was Clinton got blackmailed into appointing by Jeffrey Epstein, comes in, feeds that, shocking, right? Gives that information to the Weekly Standard, which is a Zionist outfit made by Robert Kagan and William Crystal. They publish it. These are PNAC people too. Say Weekly Standard published PNAC's papers, all of them. And then it ends up in Colin Powell's speech, the mock trial of anthrax. So the legal reason to invade Iraq was they're in violation of UN Resolution 1441, stipulating they couldn't have WMDs, specifically anthrax, which was the claim. They didn't have anthrax. So that whole thing. Now, that was all a big lie. But people signed up to join the military to fight Saddam thinking he had something to do with 9/11.
That was me. Yep.
Yeah, and he didn't have anything to do with 9/11. Nobody in Iraq had anything to do with 9/11.
Well, I didn't think that. And in fact, I was on the USS Constellation, right? So this was the battle group that did the majority of the shock and awe campaign in Iraq too. And we were setting in the Persian Gulf when George Bush declared war. This is actually what made me a libertarian, because I signed up thinking it was like, I thought it was like Pakistanis or Saudi nationals via Pakistan that did this shit, and I'm like, why the fuck are we at war with Iraq? What's going on? I was literally like jarred because I'm like, we're dropping all this ordnance,
invading Cambodia after Pearl Harbor.
Right.
Yeah. I look similar, Yeah,
I was flabbergasted.
It made no sense. But they said they officially, and like Dick Cheney and stuff, they said, oh yeah, and he also reconstituted his nuclear weapon program, and he didn't. And guess where the Niger forgery and those lies came from? Zionist again.
Yeah.
It's this little cabal that lied to us, and they would not admit even after the fact. They're like, oh yeah, George Bush is just an idiot and lied about WMDs. Like, the people that lied about WMDs were Louis Leibowitz, Richard Pearl, Douglas Feith. You can name them all. Michael Ledeen. Go through the list. That's the origin of these lies. William Safire and Judith Miller and da-da-da-da-da. None of them were held responsible for any of the BS that they pushed. They got all these people killed, spent trillions of dollars, murdered hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, flattened Fallujah and so on, and that led to Blackwater and torture and Abu Ghraib and just horrible. Most horrible things you can do is war, and especially for no reason.
Sure.
And there were no consequences politically, and this group is hidden, and if you say anything about it, well, you're just anti-Semitic.
Always.
Right?
Always.
So the first film is about the erroneous links to Iraq. And I also kind of bashed the 9/11 Commission, what a joke it was, and how much it was compromised interests and things like that. And I got into the Dancing Israelis, and I went a little bit into the Saudi funding. But after I made that film, I finally got my Freedom of Information request back. We had the interrogations of the Israelis and all this way more information. So I made another film, 5 hours long, called The Empire in Mass. It's like, okay, they definitely fucking did it. All these 6 people five get arrested, 1 flees the country. But the 5 that got arrested, all of them had different stories about where they were and all this. And it's just so, like, there's no fucking question,
Where can we
and
view
so
that at?
my theory of the first one,
Where can I see that at?
Can you view it on my website? I sell that one.
Okay.
And the reason I sell it is because I mean, if
We
I
should
was
make
allowed
money.
to have super chats and all that other, I wouldn't need to sell it.
Sure.
But I'm like, well, I have to, because I got kicked off Vimeo and YouTube and this and this and that, and I never know what my future revenue is going to be.
Sure.
Like I was set to make like $250,000 on YouTube had I been allowed to stay on there. I gotten all over the Epstein stuff since like 2007. And so I was being recognized. I'm like, yeah, go read my forum. We've been talking about this for years. And on Sean Atwood's show with, 700,000 people on there. And so I was getting recognized. My channel was blowing up. Wasn't allowed to monetize, and I wasn't allowed to super chat, but I could make it through Entropy or whatever.
Sure.
But it only got like a month of that revenue before they're like, nope, your channel's gone.
Jeez.
And I was like, God damn it. We were set to clear 100,000 easy, which means way more because they suppress the numbers and everything.
Yeah, they take 1/3 of everything you make on Google too.
Yeah, well, I made 0 on Google. Like, I had to go through indirectly, but just having the eyeballs on it.
Right.
And it's like YouTube fed into everything else. My Discord was also deleted. So we had like 15,000 on there, and it went to 0. My Twitter had like 18,000. That got erased. And like 6 other ones after that got erased. I can't poke my head above water.
Right.
So we were looking at like, you could go from like possibly $250,000 down to no dollars. And we had to make PeerTube, and I had to get another server because Bluehost also shafted me on my own personal website. I even lost my Gmail at one point. They kicked me off of that too.
Jesus.
Like, I was in the middle of a San Francisco airport. My YouTube was gone. My email was gone. My everything was gone. The only thing I had left was Skype. And Robert and Lakesh, who works for RT now, like writes to me on Skype. Like, they got you, huh, bro? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what a way to get the news, huh?
Yeah,
I go, my channel's gone. I tried to mail people about my channel being gone. My mail doesn't work either. It's like, the fuck? And then they went after my website.
They killed your whole Google. The whole Google.
They killed my Google,
everything.
My website, my YouTube, my everything I had.
Jesus, dude.
And I was in America at the time. I couldn't even deal with it until I got back to Japan. And I had to spend thousands of dollars getting my website back.
Right.
getting rid of the malware they put on there themselves and switching companies and so on. And it's like, good thing I had Skype, because Skype's always like Reed and the Jackmans. We used to talk on Twitter. I get banned. It was 11 days. I got banned on Twitter. Reed makes me a new account. Goes up to, I had 3,000 people within like 2 weeks or something.
Quick, yeah.
And they got rid of that in 12 days.
Yeah, it was crazy because I was talking to Reed. I was like, hey, man, I don't really know how I'm going to get a hold of Ryan here. He's like, oh, Skype, man. You got to get a hold of him on Skype. I was like, all right, cool.
Got to do Skype. They're like, why are you on Skype? I'm like, because they don't ban you.
Yeah, at all.
Yeah, I'll get banned on everything else. Even Discord has been banned. You know, I have not been banned on Telegram, knock on wood, yet. And that one seems to be all right. But I'm like, my Skype list is so long already. I'm not switching and having two things. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I just get Skype. I'll be the only person on it. So, you know, if I want to get hold of Ryan, just Skype him, because I check it every day, all the time. So
Outlaw Barber says, do you know anything on satanic bloodlines?
You talking about gingers?
I don't know. Probably. Yeah.
Nah, that stuff is like, I'm not religious. So
yeah.
What, you know, people are. And so when they say that, they just mean really evil people. They're not actually satanic. And it's confusing too, because there's like an atheist kind of mockery of religion called Satanism. They don't really believe in Satan. They just believe in like doing the opposite of the Bible.
Right. That was the Satanist Anton LaVey who founded that in San Francisco, right? Yeah.
Now, devil worshiping is people that is different than Satanists. That's people who actually like are totally hedonistic and psychopathic or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think most of that is just people have problems with certain Christians, and it's always Christianity, that have problems with sexual liberation or whatever. Like, oh, you're saying I can't have sex till marriage or whatever, you're too strict. And just out of a sense of rebellion, they reject everything else in the religion too, just because of that one thing, and be like, well, I worship the devil. I'm like, you do not want to be. If you really thought the devil was real, there's no way you would follow that.
Yeah. we hate the Antichrist on this show, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Henry Kissinger you're talking about.
Yeah, that's one. Mantafly says, great show. I'll have to check out Ryan's documentary. Thank you for that $20 super chat. Russell Williams, huge super chat. Thank you, sir. He said, it's not a U.S. Native American issue, but does Ryan have any insight on the residential schools in Canada? Are there similar schools or institutions that should be looked at in the U.S.?
Yeah, I'm glad, or I'm kind of perplexed at why this is suddenly news. Like, this is not new. When I actually worked with the Mattaponi and Pamunkey Chiefs in Virginia and the Vital Pals back in like 2004 or 5. And so did my professor of anthropology from College of William and Mary. He's probably passed away now because he was like 80 back then. But both chiefs were in their hundreds. They each lived to be like 105. They passed away within 5 days of one another. I was actually at a protest in Colonial Williamsburg against the Iraq War when it happened. But the boarding school issue, okay, so both in Canada and the U.S., natives were sent to boarding schools to like westernized savages or whatever, cut their hair, put them in Western clothing, whatever. But that's not really what was going on. Like, they didn't want, it was a threat. Just their existence was a threat to the whole system, because people realized, like, wait, you mean there's a place I can live that doesn't have taxes, that doesn't have like all these things that we think are inevitable? And because that was a threat to the monarchies. Like, once the Americans started living with Native Americans, they didn't have kings or monarchs or any of that. Like, oh yeah, we can have a confederation, and Articles of Confederation are almost identical to the Iroquois Confederation.
Sure.
I mean, they even used Iroquois symbols on the Continental Dollar. And they had Native American advisors in Freedom Hall in Pennsylvania. I mean, our own origins owe a lot to Native American theology and not theology. Well, a little bit. Sure. I meant to say philosophy. And also too, we had republics in the past in Greece and Rome and things, but not like this, because there's a huge difference in the Greek republics and the American republics. The American republic was not focused on upholding voting or whatever. The main point of having a republican system with a small r in the US was maximizing liberty. And that's very different. And that's what natives believe too, that maximize liberty. And so if it doesn't do that, and there was somebody, I won't say his name, but he had this stupid ideology, anarchotropism or something, where, oh yeah, well, if the state makes more money, money's power, so you're increasing the power of the state. It's like, nah. If the state makes more money because of an exchange of allowing more liberty, then they have less power. Right. So I was like, oh, the state made more revenue when they legalized marijuana. I'm like, you're forgetting the part of everyone can smoke marijuana. That's increased, even, it's recreational. That increases your liberty. Like, the state has to give up power to increase the liberty of the public. That's not an increase of the state. And the republic is supposed to be focused on that. And so we owe a lot to our founding fathers and the American Indians. They were all did that together. The boarding school system comes way after that. This is post-Lincoln. So after Lincoln, the view of American Indians dramatically changed. They were just savages. It was like the Spanish model. We got to go kill them all and replace them. Sure. And they built the railroads out in California, and they went on a huge campaign of killing Indians. General Grant, who became president, is the one that destroyed Comancheria, which was it was like almost all of Texas, part of Oklahoma, part of Kansas, part of Arizona, was all, in New Mexico was all Comanche. And they're just like, oh, we can't. They're Indian, they're not even Christian. We can kill them, kill the buffalo, spread diseases, shoot them, whatever. And they just went on a total campaign of genocide. And so it's with this, and then they had the Dawes Act and Religious Crimes Act, and these things that just destroy the quote-unquote savage, which, by the way, in early writings was not derogatory. Savage meant savvy, like lives off the land, and there was a lot of Northern Europe was the same way.
Sure.
Savvy. Anyway, and they said the same shit about Vikings and stuff, like it's bloodthirsty savages. Like, yeah, in war, they don't act like that all day.
Right. I know people always think that about Vikings, and then I read some stuff about Vikings recently. It was like, man, these guys were like real big family men, and like it was completely different than what they've been portrayed as. And
that stupid TV show that's got female Vikings, that is total BS.
Sure.
Like it's they didn't. But anyway, the boarding school system comes with the reservation system that Lincoln and Grant started, putting everybody on reservations. And there had been bad Indian policy before, like Andrew Jackson was pretty horrible, but we had not been like that the whole time. And I shouldn't say we, I should the United States, whatever. They start sending them to schools to say, we're going to civilize these savages. We're so much better, even though they live longer than we do, and they seem to be happier than we do. And we're always leaving to go live with them. They never leave to come live with us, but whatever. And these schools were horrible. And about 25% of the children sent to boarding school never came home. Couldn't speak their native language because they wouldn't let them. They'd beat them and punish them if they did. And they just abused these children. And I would point out, they abused the white children too. These religious schools and stuff, these state schools, these boarding schools. The kid lives there, so they can't go home.
Right.
So imagine how bad public school would be
if
they knew you couldn't go home. Yeah. They don't treat you a certain way because they know that at 3:00 you can go home and tell your parents or whatever about it.
Right.
So other than kill, so if they got total control of you, and your parents can't even understand the language they really was worse for the native kids. And about a quarter of them died. And that was like the admitted estimate. So it's probably more. And it was worse in the U.S. than it was in Canada, but it was pretty bad. So what I was saying in my older story, back in 2004, we discovered mass graves at boarding schools. People can Google that, and I guess it should be in Google, whatever. We knew. I mean, that was not a secret. Sure. We've known about the Indian boarding school deaths, and Canada too. It's just recently they found it was like it's over 1,000 now. It was 751 the other day. I saw a meme. It was like almost 1,100 or something, but it's a meme, so whatever. Shouldn't be any. Well, let's take the conservative number, 750 bodies, mass grave or skeletons. You're going to find a lot more than that because they put everybody on there, and if a fourth of them died, you're going to go way past that number. Well, they've only looked at a few schools, and you got thousands to go, and you haven't really looked in the American schools yet. You're going to find out, like, this was genocide. Like, they grabbed people away from their parents, and they put them in a death camp pretty much under the guise of education. And it's like, well, you're going to give the state full control. This isn't all boarding schools are private schools now.
Right.
Can you imagine a public boarding school, how bad people would be abused? Like, you want to give the state control of your children?
Yeah, that'd be ugly.
Yeah, it is. But this is not like a white Indian thing. Sure. This is a government thing. And they did it to their own citizens too.
Sure.
So,
Well, Ryan, we're getting to the end of the initial live stream here. Do you want to where can people help you, find you, support you at, man?
My website. And I have a Telegram. I have VK. So like V, like vampire, K, like king, VK.com. I think my name's Dawson or Ryan Dawson is one of those. It's got my picture on it. You'll be able to find it pretty easy. That's like the replacement for Facebook. I have Telegram, which is like the replacement for Twitter or something. And all the links to all that stuff is on ANC Report. We have a podcast on Anchor for now.
For now.
Yeah, we went on Spotify, which I know is not going to last. And I had a backup YouTube channel called Reina Kawa. That's RENA, like the Japanese way of
still
writing
up?
Reina. It got a strike the other day, so I can't post anything on it. Yeah. So, but we have a different video site. I have Odyssey. It looks like I'll be using that now that they take dollars as of today. I have over 2,000 videos on Odyssey.
Yeah, if you reach out to Jeremy Kaufman or Drew
how?
Hancock, well, I can do it for you.
They're on Twitter. You see, this is what I don't understand. I'm like, you're Odyssey. You're all the anti-censorship thing. And you're like, yeah, just contact me on Twitter.
Yeah.
Or Facebook.
Well, I can reach out to them and because they just put me on the US dollar system over there at Odyssey, and that's new. That's a brand new thing for them now too. So
get those motherfuckers on Skype. It's like, dude, why the fuck are you on Twitter? Like, reach me on Gab. I'd understand, but on Twitter, half your customers can't use Twitter.
Right. And that's true.
Yeah.
That's true, man.
And I'm like, I was banned on Coinbase back in like 2012. Like, why are you on Bitcoin? I'm like, dude, I knew about Bitcoin before Adam Kokesh knew about Bitcoin. I knew about it. It didn't matter. And I had Bitcoin, and they're all just sitting there because I was banned from the exchange. And they're like, well, I get a hard wallet. I'm like, that didn't exist at the time.
Yeah. How the fuck do you get banned from Coinbase, dude? That's wild.
They banned Lana and Hendrik from Red Ice too. They're like accused of some pretty silly opinions or whatever. I don't know if they're true or not. But that shouldn't matter.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, that's your money. It's basically a bank. Like, it's not, you can't ban someone for their political opinions, but yet you can.
Yeah, it's insane.
But yeah, I got banned on Coinbase, and it's because I criticized Israel.
Right.
And I'm like, there's a lot of people that criticize Israel, but they tend to limit it just to Palestine.
Right.
So, I mean, there's like Mondo Weiss, who's great. Gideon Livy, who's great. There's the Allison Weir, who's great. There's people that are like really good on the Palestine issue. Max Blumenthal's another good one,
Sure.
Stellar. But they do not expand that to Iraq or Syria and the whole picture, and I do. And that's dangerous information. So, and I also go through the history, the Patria, the Liberty, Levant affair, all that. I know it inside and out. And the nuclear theft,
Sure.
And that'll get you banned.
It's wild, man. What's the website people can find you at?
ANC, like anti-neocon, ancreport.com. And there's a podcast I did yesterday on Operation Susanna / Levant affair. About 25% of it's on that. The other 75 was going all over the map because there were two people interviewing me.
Sure.
And I think it was more of like a funny show. So I was like, oh, we're not being serious. Okay, I will do.
Nice. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on, dude. I think you're doing great work. And of course, they're going to keep trying to kick you off everywhere. I think more podcasters should just have you on.
You gotta have that Ron Paul poster in the description, like where to get that.
I will. I'll drop it on there. I think I can't remember exactly where I got it, but
I'm gonna give you a link to one of these chairs.
Okay. Yes, I'll put it in the chat.
Man, it's good for health.
But we're gonna do an exclusive stream here as soon as this one's over. You guys can only get to that live exclusive stream by becoming a member of the channel. Trust me, you're gonna want to hear it. We're gonna talk about John McAfee in there, so you're gonna want to hear this stuff. And then if you don't want to join the Google, you can join Patreon or Subscribestar by hitting / or just / Break the Cycle JS. And get that content uploaded tomorrow.
Yeah, I got kicked off Patreon too.
What about Subscribestar? Have you tried that one yet?
I got kicked off Patreon and they took all my money. I'm like, why do I need Patreon or Subscribestar? I can build that myself, and I did. Sure. So I have memberships on A&C Report where I keep the money. Why do I have to give 20% to some middleman?
Right.
It's all this is a glorified middleman. And I'll tell you, if you'd like us to build you membership thing so you don't have to use Patreon and Subscribestar and you can have 100% of your money, we can do that for you.
That'd be pretty cool, man. That's definitely something we're going to talk about offline here.
Just hey, anybody listening, you just email Ricky, like RICKY, Ricky at ancreport.com and say, I want to replace my Patreon with my own paywall.
Okay. And
negotiate with him and he'll set it up.
Sounds good, man. Well, I appreciate you. I'll see you here in just a couple minutes for the exclusive stream, brother.
All right, man.
All right, guys, another awesome episode. I can't tell you to go follow him because it's very hard to find him, but he told you where you can find him at. Definitely check out the website, man, because now I have to go watch that documentary. I wish I would have watched it before our show, but I'm definitely going to check it out. 5 hours. I'm sure it's going to be based and fire. Guys, check out our sponsors at Lorenzotti.coffee for all your delicious Italian coffee needs delivered directly to your door. Bring the taste of Italy home. Use BTC at checkout. Also, toplobster.com, the man, the myth, the legend, where you can get this awesome custom Break the Cycle hoodie I'm wearing tonight, or this great custom Break the Cycle pillow that I have on the couch for all the couch streams. Check that stuff out, man. And if you become a patron or a member of the channel or a Subscribestar, you also get his designs 2 weeks early at like a 30% discount in the Discord. So check it out. And then, of course, anthemplanning.com for all your emergency and crisis planning needs. They're doing a wonderful job that the government sucks at for a much cheaper price and much more efficiently. Please see what they can do for your home, business, or personal life today. Coming up on the show tomorrow, I have New York Times best-selling author Carol Roth talking about her new book, The War on Small Business, that I will be trying to finish tonight and tomorrow morning. She is amazing, and she has big hair and doesn't care. I'm super stoked to have her on. I can't wait. And then Friday, I'm going to have one of my mentors, one of my great friends, Mr. Larry Sharp, on the show. On Friday, we're going to talk all things New York with that awesome New York accent, talk about the Sharp way, what's next for Mr. Larry Sharp. And he's a great guy, so definitely check that out. I will see you guys tomorrow. Listen, join the channel membership. Find the stream I'm about to create. It's already created. Just look at the after-hour stream for Ryan Dawson. We're going to talk about important stuff. Don't miss it. I will see you tomorrow if you do not. But until then, don't forget to break the cycle.
Due to legal reasons, I just have to explain. The lyrics of my last song may seem to contain a violent call to action in the verse and refrain, but I just meant it in Minecraft. The helicopter part was in reference to GTA 5 and the things you do. So any violence you commit, I am not an excuse, because I just meant it in Minecraft. Well, Chipper is my friend and he's constantly cold. Accusations of incitement getting totally old. Make your own choices, yeah, you have control, because I just meant it in Minecraft. Obviously I would never advocate force, unless there's due process and a trial, of course. And if you're convicted, we will make you a corpse in Minecraft, just in Minecraft. You're nothing, I mean, you know it. No product finish, cause it closed from COVID.